Hey everyone, I'm Inu and I'm here to talk about Guild Wars. Everything from lore to walkthroughs to playthroughs, and if you're crazy like I am, every single legendary in Guild Wars 2. Now, to start us off, we have to express that this has spoilers. I know some people are out there going, well, I don't want to know everything, but at the same time I do. I want to put it out there ahead of time that anything I talk about will be spoiler related, because if you never played Guild Wars 1, you will now learn everything from Guild Wars 1. If you didn't know anything about the 3 books that ArenaNet released, you will now know everything about those. So if you don't want to hear everything in the order I am putting these in, that's fine. But I do recommend, this is going to be a chronological information of lore, and then occasional videos of me doing walkthroughs or playthroughs or working on legendaries. In the world of Guild Wars, we're on the planet Tyria. As far as we know, Tyria is the only named planet in the solar system. We know there's stars, we do know there's other planets, but we don't have any names for them. So as far as we know, unlike in real life, no one has flown into the stars to see or looked or gave names to planets. We also don't even know if any life is on any of those planets, so that's also a thing. So being on Tyria, this is where everything starts. As current, up to date from Guild Wars 2, there's only 3 continents that we know of. In Guild Wars 2, some of you are going to be like, well, I can see there's other, islands maybe, or continents. We're not 100% sure, because the map does not show much depth of what's there. We only know from both games and books there's 3 continents. Now, me being weird and based off the definition of a continent, I say there's technically 2. Normally, a continent is divided by or surrounded by water, and it's bigger than an island. Cantha is bigger than an island, but it's not fully surrounded by water, as we can tell, whereas when you look at Central Tyria, which is where we mostly stay, and yes, I said Central Tyria. That is the main continent that in both games you play on. And in the books, you kind of revolve around. It is weird. They just decided to call it Central Tyria. What I believe they did is because it's probably the most centered continent on the planet. But we're not sure, because we don't have a full spherical look of what the actual planet looks like. So, for me saying 2 continents, that would be Central Tyria and Cantha. And that's because Ilona, which is the second continent, is attached to Central Tyria. As you can see, those are the 2 spots. It is divided by a giant desert. There is some water that starts to cut through it, but we don't even see how much of the ocean goes around Ilona. We do have a better idea of how it goes around Central Tyria, and roughly how it goes around Cantha. As I said, this is going to be a series of lore first, and then everything else. So with the lore, we're going to start with kind of getting you to know, when did Guild Wars start? Which is going to be a little more tricky, because there is some information that we only know from books and people who had ancestors that used to live that far back. But when it comes to the games and the books, the first instance of Guild Wars is Guild Wars 1. And as I said, we won't go too in deep in it, because like with all the lore we will do, you'll get to know more of what happens with each thing, which is Prophecies for Guild Wars 1 is the first part of Guild Wars 1 that released. The second story they released for Guild Wars 1 was Factions. And then the third story they released was Nightfall. Now in Guild Wars 1, you got 2 extra things with it. One was an expansion, which is Eye of the North. And then you got a bonus pack that allowed you to play other people's stories. That we'll go into more when we get to it, because some of those bonus pack missions you do actually tie into a lot of things that happen in Guild Wars 2 more than it ever did in Guild Wars 1, which is an interesting part. Then you have the 3 books, which is The Ghost of Ascalon, The Destiny's Edge, and Sea of Sorrows. Those are the 3 books that Guild Wars released. Now, those aren't actually in chronological order. The chronological order after Guild Wars 1, so you kind of have an idea of where we're going, is going to be Prophecies from Guild Wars 1, Factions, then you have Nightfall, then you have Eye of the North, the bonus missions, then you have, during the 250 years gap of Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, you would have the 3 books, which then goes Sea of Sorrows, Edge of Destiny, and Ghosts of Ascalon. So these books kind of help fill in what transpires during the 250-year gap of Guild Wars 1 game and then Guild Wars 2. And then currently with Guild Wars 2, it's pretty big. You have the personal story, then you have something that is no longer fully playable as it used to be, which is Living World Season 1. And then, because in Living World Season 1, they had a big ol' event, and if you weren't there at the time, you didn't get to fully play everything, because there's a bunch of lead up to it, and then you get to play Season 1. You now can play in Guild Wars 2 a little bit of Season 1, not in full depth as it used to be, but relatively close. From Season 1, you have Season 2, which happens in order, as you can see with Season 2. And then we have Heart of Thorns, which is Guild Wars 2 first expansion. After Heart of Thorns, we have Living World Season 3, which is a bunch of stories that lead up to the next expansion, with his Path of Fire. From Path of Fire, we have Living World Season 4. The next expansion is Icebrood Saga. There's no Living World after that. It just goes into End of Dragons, then Secrets of the Obscure, and the current expansion right now is Janthier Wilds. So, once we get to that point, we will go through, as I said, everything from Prophecies up to Janthier. And we'll get as much information, details, things we looked up, things we found, things we actually dig for, and questions that still haven't been answered. So I hope you guys continue to follow this series of Guild Wars, and hope to see you soon. See you on Tyria.